Hello, sir.
Hello.
Welcome to our show.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, it's been a tough year, and the USA were dramatically challenged by this COVID pandemic. Yeah. I would ask you, in terms of economic relation with Romania, do we see any changes caused by this pandemic?
Well, I think, yes, there are a lot of changes coming out of COVID. It was a tough year, as you say. And first, you know, our hearts and minds and our prayers are with all of those who lost loved ones over the last year. I think now we see on both the European and American continents, we see things getting back to normal, and that's a very welcome sign. And the advent of the vaccine as well has been very welcome. Hopefully, we'll also see some positive changes economically. I get asked all the time about American investment in Romania by really everybody at every level. And we see some very promising signs. I can tell you we talk to American companies every day. They're very interested in Romania. There are also some very, very positive projections from international financial institutions about economic growth in Romania going forward this year after COVID. And they're getting more and more positive, it seems, with every passing month. So we hope to see some very positive outcomes from this. In certain sectors, particularly in IT and elsewhere, can't say much, of course, specifically, but I do think there are some serious possibilities for more U.S. investment.
But how about the energetic sector? You know, I'm having in my mind the Black Sea. You know, there are so many opportunities there.
There are a lot of opportunities in the energy sector. I think the biggest one where you're going to see a lot of American involvement and investment is going to be in Chernovoda, the nuclear plant. As you saw this week, the Romanian Senate passed the intergovernmental agreement on civil nuclear cooperation. And this is really, I think, a very exciting moment because what this will enable is a U.S.-led consortium with companies from a number of friendly countries participating in the refurbishment and expansion of the Chernovoda nuclear plant. There's a lot of focus in Washington on this. It looks like U.S. Export-Import Bank is going to be supporting U.S. participation in this project, and that's going to draw a lot of positive attention to the sector in Romania. And there's the real possibility of some very innovative new technologies being used in that project, which I think will attract even more attention to Romania from private investors. So we'll see how it all plays out. But right now, very positive about this.
Okay. Speaking of laws, you know, the coalition in power in Bucharest has promised to repair the amended justice laws by the Social Democrats, led then by Liviu Dragnea. So the current coalition made 10 promises about justice in their governing program. And at the end of 6 months, we see that only 1 or 2 promises have been honored. And major cases remain unsolved, such as the special section for investigation of magistrates. How do you feel about that?
Well, we've made our position, I think, clear on the SIIJ question before. And I would just say again, I mean, we believe that, you know, the coalition should carry through on its promise to dismantle the SIIJ. A lot of European institutions, justice institutions, have made their views clear, made it clear that that body should be disbanded. I think it's still early for the coalition. They're working hard. I believe that they're going to deliver those results. There's a lot of work going on in Parliament and in the government right now to find the best way forward to meet those promises and to bring back and restore the rule of law in Romania. And I feel very confident about that. But it's something we are passionate about. It is a strategic interest of the U.S. to see rule of law upheld in Romania, among other reasons. You know, President Biden has made anti-corruption a national security priority for us because corruption is not just a problem, even though it's a big problem for the countries where it exists. It is a security threat because it allows malign actors to exploit weaknesses in countries. And so for that reason, we're very interested to see progress made here.
Let's come back to the Romanian justice system. Just saying that the special section is going to be disbanded, because this is one of the issues, one of those promises. Do you think that the corruption cases of magistrates should be returned to the DNA, as we say in Romania, as it was before?
Well, the DNA has a very strong track record of fighting corruption in this country. And by the way, we were very encouraged to see additional resources being promised now to the DNA to help it become more capable to do its job and to do more. So certainly it would make sense that the DNA would continue or go back to dealing with those kinds of cases. Ultimately, it's for the legislators here to decide how best to handle it. I think, however, again, that all of the independent bodies that had opinion or opined on this matter and had, offered that Romania should, for example, dismantle the SIAJ, were also very clear about the intent of that. And that justice should move forward. Whatever the solution is, justice should move forward, and law enforcement should be enabled and empowered to do its work.
When you say DNA needs additional resources, you have in your mind, you bear in your mind the possibility to work together with the security services again? Because we have, 1 year ago, the Constitutional Court stated that the prosecutor won't be allowed to use in their investigation the wiretaps and so on and so forth of secret services. And now there's a draft in the Parliament. Nobody knows exactly what is the fate of that draft.
Well, the ruling on this matter, I mean, I've actually read this personally. It was very interesting. I think it's something that you would see in democratic countries, and we've seen this. We have the same discussion back in the United States, and that is basically finding the balance between protecting civil rights, but also catching criminals who need to be caught, and many of them are very sophisticated and require sophisticated tools.
We are talking about terrorism, we are talking about trafficking
in persons, terrorism, sophisticated financial crimes, and corruption cases. And many courts, including courts in the United States, have ruled that you need to separate intelligence work from law enforcement work in order to protect civil rights. And this is a very normal thing. So in that respect, the ruling of the Constitutional Court makes a lot of sense. What probably needs to happen now is that new legislation needs to be prepared in order to enable those capabilities to be used by law enforcement, but in a law enforcement context. And that's going to take some time to construct. But I know there are people working on that, and it seems like that will be the good solution. But again, it's about balancing civil rights with fighting crime.
You mentioned about Biden's administration fight against corruption, and I would ask you, corruption and a strong justice for Romania. Why are these issues so important for the USA regarding Romania?
Well, Romania is a very important strategic partner of the United States, and we want to see our strategic partners be as strong as they can be. I mentioned earlier, corruption is a national security priority. We don't want to see Romania be vulnerable to malign actors who could exploit corrupt systems. And that's one of the reasons why it's so important to us. Another important reason is that we want to see the investment climate in Romania be as favorable as it can be to U.S. companies and all foreign firms who would want to invest in Romania. And certainly, if the justice system is functioning well, that's a very important factor for foreign investors. I can tell you, again, American companies will discuss this with us quite frequently when they're asking our advice or our views on investing in Romania.
Okay, traveling in the USA for Romanians without a visa is another issue.
Yes.
And I see that the Romanian MFA intends to invoke the strategic partnership in order to obtain some exceptions, at least, from the current U.S. legislation concerning visa. Do you think that this is an approach that is going to lead somewhere?
I think it's important for Romania to make its priorities known within our strategic partnership. And so to that extent, it is good the MFA is emphasizing this. I also know that the MFA is working to educate Romanians about the realities of applying for a visa.
And you think it's going to work?
I think it's helpful. I mean, other countries that have sought to enter the program have done this. And so in that sense, I think it is helpful. The visa waiver program, I know how interested people are here. I get asked about this all the time. I do think eventually we will see Romania join this program.
When?
It's impossible to predict. I think, you would look at the experience we have with other countries that have recently joined. It takes a long time to get into the program or to be, I wouldn't say admitted, but to be qualified for the program. And the reason for this is it's a very, very technical, demanding, and legal program. It was created by Congress, Department of Homeland Security administers it. There are a lot of requirements for countries to join. And a lot of them are technical requirements. And Romania meets a lot of those. But we also have a working group with the Romanian government to review all of the different things that need to be done to qualify and to work on all of them. And this gets into some very arcane and technical matters. That's going particularly well, I have to say. although it will take time. The other thing, which I get asked about very frequently, because one of the requirements
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but time means 1 month, 2 months, 1 year,
3 months,
3 years, 10 years.
Hard to predict. Hard to predict.
So you cannot tell us just 1 year, 2 years?
I honestly can't, because it's not up to me, and it's not a simple matter of filling out, if you will, a form and saying, okay, we met all these requirements, then instantly it happens. Congress has to agree. They have to review all this. That's an entire process in itself. I think it's important for the Romanian government to engage our Congress on this matter, and they are more and more. I think that's very helpful to help move the process ahead and explain why Romania's interest is here and why Romania's case is for joining. So I think that, all of these things are very positive. And believe me, we all want to see Romania in this program someday.